In Europe, in the dark days of the 1930s and 40s, the flag of the Third Reich struck terror into millions of people. The swastika came to represent the basest traits of mankind. This led to the deaths of over 50 million people throughout the world. And all because of a man who encouraged others to follow his will. A man who was so full of hate he had to go to great lengths to achieve his aims. A significant part of his plan was to kill or imprison those who were against him. So, hundreds of camps like the one we're going to look at were built to achieve that end. This short film takes a look at the labour camp at Neuengamme, 10 kilometres from Hamburg. It was operational for just over 7 years between 1938 and 1945. 106,000 people came through its gates in that time, 42,900 died of exhaustion or were shot, beaten or publicly hanged. In addition to this, a further 16,100 people lost their lives when they were forcibly marched deeper into Germany to avoid the advancing troops. So let's visit this forgotten place and see if we can imagine what it was like to be there.
In these 12 years, about 50 million people have lost their lives all over Europe.
This was a labour camp where prisoners were forced to work. The policy was extermination through labour. Neuengamme made bricks for the Third Reich. In the land where Hitler ruled, you could be imprisoned in a place like this for a whole variety of reasons. For instance, if you were black or Jewish, or if you were a gypsy, or if you were homeless or disabled or even an alcoholic. Or if you were a prostitute or a homosexual, you could be sterilised and then imprisoned. Therefore, any group which as a whole the majority of the German population marginalised was likely to be imprisoned. All of the bricks in these buildings were made here, and the inmates built the buildings as well. And each of these raised areas represents the size and positions of the timber huts in which they lived. 600 people in each hut. But despite the unimaginable hardship and suffering, people recorded their plight by painting and drawing. They recorded what was everyday life in the camp. Surprisingly, even a band was formed. But evil was never very far away. Medical experiments on children took place here. But outside in the brickworks, work continued, and it was hard and it was relentless. The food was, of course, very poor and of very small portions. Malnutrition was inevitable, as was exhaustion and death. Formal punishments were very harsh, 4 people to a cell, and very many were gassed. In this drawing they seem to be consoling themselves by singing. But as you can see from these drawings, malnutrition was taking hold, and frankly it's beyond our imagination, isn't it, to understand what that must have been like. And for some people it was much too much, and so they threw themselves onto the electric fences to end it all. Initially the bodies used to be taken to Hamburg for cremation, but after a while they decided to build their own crematorium, much easier. all overseen of course by the SS, whose offices are on the right here. So what has happened to Neuengamme now? Well, it's a place of remembrance. In these small gardens stands a representation of the crematorium chimney. And along the side of the pathway are concrete plaques with the names of every country of the people involved. Belgium there, Bulgaria, Russia, the list goes on and on. And when you get to the end of this unassuming little building houses the names of every single prisoner who was ever interred here. 106,000 names.
That was, I think that might have been the total that died in Europe.
I thought he said here.
I also heard this was a concentration camp, not an extermination camp, although people died.
Yes.
But we'll have to ask